Have you ever heard of the phrase, "don't shit where you eat"? It's a cautionary reminder to avoid mixing personal matters with professional or academic environments. But here's the thing, in the realm of relationships, university, and China, it's almost unavoidable. Who are you most likely to date or become friends with? Your classmates and coworkers, or strangers in the street? You see, in the midst of our journeys in China, we often find ourselves shitting where we eat, so to speak. We blur the lines, create connections, and sometimes face the positive or negative outcomes. In China, this can be particularly true, as foreigners, extracurricular activities, and other experiences intertwine. In this episode, we're diving into the intricate realm of relationships in China. Get ready for an honest exploration of the highs and lows, complete with captivating stories and insightful observations and practical advice to navigate the challenges of forging connections while studying or living in China. Welcome to China University. This is Jimsy, your student advisor. In this podcast, I will not only talk about the many professional, academic, and personal growth opportunities this country has to offer, but also I'll mention some of the major obstacles foreign students encounter while living in China. I'll share my experience, thoughts, and opinions along with some realistic advice and genuine encouragement. Join the conversation and make your voice heard. Please leave a comment, and share this episode to help this podcast become more relevant and reach more people. Make sure to subscribe to China University Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and YouTube for all the latest episodes. Find us everywhere as China University Podcast, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at China Uni Podcast for updates and more. Alright, first and foremost, let's emphasize the significance of friendships in Chinese culture. Within the context of Chinese culture, relationships and connections hold immense value. I've discussed the importance of forming friendships and building genuine connections with Chinese people in previous episodes like The Illusion of Guanxi in episode 12 and Sense of Belonging in episode 21. It's true that cultivating friendships allows individuals to establish a sense of community, find emotional support, and create networks that can be advantageous in various aspects of life. But it's crucial to acknowledge that there are some cultural differences in how friendships function between Chinese people and foreigners, as well as between foreigners themselves. If you're a regular listener of my podcast, you're probably already aware of how language barriers can impact the people you meet and interact with. But if you're a foreigner in China, it's likely that most of your friends are also foreigners. So the points I'm about to discuss might primarily apply to foreigners within the university context, but I'm certain that others will still relate to the topics we'll delve into today. So, have you ever heard the phrase, "friends for a reason, friends for a season"? The phrase, "friends for a reason, friends for a season" suggests that some friendships are temporary and serve a specific purpose or fulfill a certain need during a particular phase of life. Once that purpose is fulfilled or the circumstances change, the friendship may naturally fade away. It can also refer to someone who enters your life for a particular period. This could be a short-term friendship based on shared experiences, such as attending the same school, working together, or living in the same place. Once that season or phase ends, the friendship may naturally evolve or diminish as people move on to different paths or locations. Some friendships serve a specific purpose or are tied to a particular time in life, and as circumstances change, the dynamics of the friendship may change as well. It's a reminder to appreciate and value the friendships that we have in the present moment while understanding their ephemeral nature. In China, it's common for friends to come and go. The people you initially meet or hang out with may not be the same people you end up spending time with in the long run, and that's perfectly okay. I consider myself fortunate because I met very good friends in college, but as life and circumstances and COVID unfolded, we all drifted apart. Even though I missed them, I believe that our friendship served its purpose. We all met and socialized with different people, entered romantic relationships, and had less and less time to hang out with each other. This is the norm in China and probably all over the world, and I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing. I know it kinda sucks, but you'll gradually adjust and develop a carpe diem mindset when it comes to meeting new people and forming new friendships. A while back, I had an awesome interview with my friend Luis from Chile. He had this really cool way of understanding how people in China build connections, and it became evident that some interactions connections led to dead ends, while others took them on a deep dive. You know what I mean? Well, maybe I should let my friend Louise explain it to you. You should give it a try too and see who you tend to connect with better and the types of people you don't connect with as much. It can definitely save you some trouble and prevent your connections from getting cluttered. So, Louise, can you briefly explain the activity in the interview and how did it help you understand the dynamics of your connections?
Well, the activity was about doing ethnographic interviews to see how social networks will help or not to the acquisition of a second language, in this case Chinese. But beyond the objective of this particular project, what caught my attention was the method, because you needed to give the interviewee a piece of paper and a pen, and they needed to start by drawing black dot with their names, and then they started to narrate, whether chronologically or as they would prefer, their social network. So the interesting part was that by the end of the exercise, the individual could see their social network like graphically, right? And social network grew or expanded by three different factors. First one was people. There are some people that are very good to introduce you in their world, people that sometimes you met and then they expand your social network, right? There is also activities, for example, sports. Of course, in activities like your job or if you're studying, that is related with places. There are some places that you also meet a lot of people, for example, your local bar every single weekend. And the last thing is that you can divide people by the area of the social network. What I'm trying to say is that some people know a lot of people, but the relationships that they have with every single one of them is not as deep. So there's this other kind of people that the area is more reduced, but the depth of every single friendship is much more solid.
All right. And let me ask you, in your experience, how do you think the process of connecting with people in China differs from connecting with people in your home country? Have you noticed any unique cultural factors or challenges that impact relationships?
So in this same exercise, of course, I apply it to myself. And well, my way of expanding my social network here in China, compare of how I will do it in my own country, of course, is different, right? I realized that here in China, my network is reduced to the activities that I'm doing. For example, first I lived in Tianjin for 2 years and I was a teacher. So I noticed that all my social networking was based mainly on the job. Of course, I had other branches, like for example, I like to go to the gym, so that's my activity. So I will also have like some Chinese friends. And the other factor that influenced this whole social network was that I was living in a countryside in Wuqing in Tianjin. So most of the people they didn't speak English, so that opened me the door to have more Chinese friends. Then later on, I moved to Shanghai, and my activity changed. Now I was a student, so of course all my social network, or vast majority of my social network, was surrounding a place which was the university campus. And because Shanghai is much more international, I was surrounded by foreigners. However, how these two compare to my country? Well, first of all, before coming to China, my social networking was based on different factors: the school, the university that I went, random people that I met in parties, friends of my brothers and sisters. So you have much more resources to expand your social network. However, what is funny is that after China, like in my case, after 4 years in China, when I go back to Chile, my social network is reduced drastically, right? And also because I don't have an activity there, in the sense that I don't have a job or I'm not a student there, it's much more difficult to expand it again. So yeah, like it is true that you need to take care of social networks, otherwise you start losing, right? And you start reducing a lot.
Lastly, when it comes to forming and maintaining relationships in China, what has been some of the most valuable lessons you've learned? Are there any specific strategies or approaches that have helped you navigate the complexities of connecting with people in a foreign country?
Well, and this last answer is related with the previous one. What I'm noticing now is that for me, I'm more comfortable by being the second type of people. Remember, the ones that prefers to go deeper in a relationship rather than expanding a lot the social networking, because as we said, you need to maintain that social network, and to maintain it, that requires time. So actually, if you have a very expanded social network, then you lack of time to try to maintain and to take care of every single one of those relationships, right? So I guess I prefer the other way, like have less friends and be able to concentrate more on them rather than the opposite. However, in my case, it's difficult in the sense that I have changed from different cities. So 3 times. The first one was Tianjin, then Shanghai, and now I am in Beijing. I just arrived, so we will see what happens.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you seriously for taking the time to share your thoughts and ideas with us. I'm sure that some of our listeners will feel curious at home and take pen and paper and map their own relationships with others in China. Now, let's move on to the next part of our podcast, in where I discuss dating and romantic relationships. There's so many exciting and unpredictable experiences when it comes to dating and romantic relationships in China. You'll have plenty of opportunities to meet and date new people at every corner, whether it's exchanging WeChat or Instagram contacts at bars or clubs, or getting involved with people from your immediate surroundings. It's all part of the adventure, but it's important to be mindful of the decisions you make before you decide to get into a serious relationship. You have to take some things into consideration. For example, if you're dating another foreigner who happens to be a student and you guys are about to graduate, then that means that you must have plans that align well. So you either extend your studies or get jobs, or one partner moves to the other partner's country, or do long distance for a while. And all these plans require a great deal of commitment and planning for a shared future. Failing to have clear discussions and a solid plan can strain the relationship and potentially lead to bad breakups. This is why I brought up the saying, don't shit where you eat. Basically, it means avoiding unnecessary drama or emotional chaos in a place where you have to be present all the time, especially if your time in China will be relatively short. But if for some reason you choose to pursue a romantic interest within your usual circles, it's important to proceed with caution and maintain a respectful dynamic to avoid awkward situations. Look, every semester, foreigners rush and dive headfirst into relationships for companionship and various reasons. Please don't play yourself. Take your time. Don't rush things. Be selective, because if everything goes well in your relationship, no one will bat an eye. But if things go wrong, men and women on campus will discuss their personal matters and those of others. So, for example, if you break up on bad terms and your ex decides to speak badly about you, your reputation will be damaged, preventing you or making it very hard for you to get into another relationship. Or if you harass or be a jerk to someone within your friend group, it won't be long before everyone else finds out, and before you know it, you'll be labeled as persona non grata, which can be an incredibly isolating experience. Look, expanding your social circle beyond your schoolmates is something I encourage if you want to feel more connected in China. Some people turn into dating apps, which can be both efficient and exciting as long as you stay vigilant and avoid falling for catfishing or encountering the Tinder swindler. On the other hand, meeting people in bars can be thrilling, but not always the most efficient way to build meaningful connections, in my opinion. More than often, you end up with a long list of WeChat contacts you'll probably never talk again after that night. Apart from that, there's always a chance of encountering really intense and pushy individuals, you know. We humans can be really pathetic and creepy when we desperately want something or someone. Let me share a personal story from 7 years ago. I went to a bar with my classmates, and I vividly remember this foreign guy approaching one of her female classmates. He asked her to dance, buy her a drink, and add her own WeChat, but she politely declined. We didn't think much of it at that time, but a week later she received a message from another female classmate informing her that a foreigner was showing her photo to other foreigners on campus. He claimed, listen to this, he claimed that he had left her hat at the bar the other night and that he wanted to return it to her. And man, the funny thing was that she didn't even wear a hat that night. Naturally, my classmates were alarmed and concerned learned, that same night, they reported the guy to the security guards, and since he wasn't a student at our university, he was promptly asked to leave the premises. But he continued to linger around the gate, occasionally greeting her from the other side of the fence. Man, can you imagine how creepy? This unsettling behavior persisted for months until my classmate met another foreigner who seemed genuinely kind. He was tall, handsome, and wealthy, what the Chinese refer to as Gao Fu Shuai. He quickly learned about her situation and offered her an unexpected solution. He asked her to move out of the campus and into his penthouse in the city center. But what unfolded next was entirely unexpected. She ended up enduring 3 years of physical and verbal abuse from the same person who had rescued her months earlier. So, man, remember, when it comes to dating and relationships, it's really important to trust your instincts sometimes. Just be cautious and prioritize your safety and well-being above all else. And this is where I was getting into with this story. Dating in China can be exciting and fulfilling, but it's important to be aware of certain behaviors that can impact relationships. Recognizing the signs of toxic behavior or personality disorders such as NPD and BPD and other related traits in relationships is crucial for your own mental health and emotional well-being in China. Look, when you come to China, you have to live, interact, and get emotionally involved with people who come from different backgrounds and had different upbringings. And sometimes people with unhealthy attachment styles or people with personality disorders may use tactics like play mind games or power plays, isolating us from our friends and family or by crossing our boundaries. These behaviors can leave us feeling confused, drained, and questioning our own worth. And let's not forget that sometimes we're taken by surprise by some people's charming facades because they're either hiding their true colors or because their claws come out only when you're emotionally invested or financially dependent. So even though I'm in no way a mental health professional, I want to shed some light on narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, and borderline personality disorder, BPD, because in my opinion, people who are diagnosed with these disorders or just have some traits are often seen as the villains of the relationship world, lurking in the shadows, ready to unleash their toxic behavior. Now, I get it. People with NPD and BPD don't choose to be villains. That's probably the last thing they want. Their condition and traits are often the result of tough childhoods, neglectful parents, or prolonged suffering, which can lead to unhealthy attachment styles and unhealthy coping mechanisms. Now, listen to me when I say that recognizing the signs or traits of NPD and BPD in relationships is crucial for our own mental and emotional well-being. You're going to be extremely busy with school and experiencing China, and during this time, the only person you should be caring about the most is you and yourself. I've seen and heard about foreigners trapped in toxic relationships in China, which sometimes involve one of the partners being subjugated or trapped in a cycle of domestic violence with a fellow foreigner or even a local Chinese. People with these disorders may use tactics like playing mind games or isolating us from our family and friends, like I said. And, family and friends are particularly the ones who might detect the signs of abuse. Narcissists will do anything to get supply, also known as narcissistic supply, and they're often in a hurry to get it. So they will accelerate things with you by crossing boundaries or using other tactics. If early on you set boundaries and stick to them unforgivingly and don't put up with their shit, they will persist, but if they figure out you uncovered them, they will discard you and move on to their next victim. People with BPD will employ similar tactics, but they usually have a favorite person. It can be a friend or a romantic partner. But one difference between the two personality disorders is that the narcissist sees nothing wrong with his or her behavior because he or she is essentially perfect and see people in their life as replaceable, while people with BPD see themselves as the total opposite of perfection. They usually don't think highly of themselves, but will sometimes hide their low self-esteem with superficial overconfidence, and they have a hard time regulating emotions such as sadness and anger, and their behaviors can leave us feeling confused, drained, and questioning our own worth, like I said before. So I will mention 10 manipulation techniques you can identify in others or in yourself. Number one, love bombing, which is when someone showers their partner with excessive affection, attention, and grand gestures during the early stages of flirting or dating. It can be flattering, I know. It can be flattering and exciting, but it's important to be aware that it can also be a tactic used for manipulation and control. If you accept and reciprocate the love bombing too quickly, it may signal to an abuser or toxic person that you're craving love and affection. You don't want to be seen as an easy target by these individuals, particularly if you're going through a vulnerable phase in your life. Number two, sex bombing. Similarly, it refers to the intense focus on physical intimacy and sexual attraction in a relationship. And look, chemistry and passion are important, but compatibility is also very important. You gotta make sure that you're compatible and that you have an emotional connection. And, this is something that both men and women should be taken into consideration equally, especially when you're getting romantically involved with other people. Number three, gift bombing. It's just the same. It refers to someone who showers their partner with extravagant presents in a bid to win their affection. Now, don't get me wrong, receiving gifts can be a nice expression of love, but we gotta delve deeper and consider the intentions behind all that generosity, especially if it's excessive. You don't have to be cynical, but just a little bit more curious and a little bit more cautious, especially if you happen to be a scholarship student living on a modest monthly stipend. Splurging on fancy dinners and luxury items may not be part of your everyday life. So when someone starts bombarding you with a constant stream of high-end gifts or asking you to move in with them into their apartment, you gotta take a step back and question their motives for a minute, for an hour, or for a day. Some of the men and women that you will encounter out there may specifically and maybe even subconsciously, because it's in their nature, target vulnerable foreign students who are away from home and might not have a solid support network of friends and are usually running short of money. They will use grand gestures to exploit your desires for a better life in China. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who spends generously is up to no good, but if someone is trying to fast track their relationship with you, it's worth pausing and asking yourself, why are they in such a hurry? Like I said before, narcissists want to ensure their source of narcissistic supply and people with BPD are their favorite person. And if you don't give them that supply or refuse to take the role of their favorite person in a timely manner, they will discard you and move on to their next victim. Number four, sulking or stonewalling. Sulking and stonewalling are manipulation tactics used to gain attention and control in a relationship. When someone sulks, they withdraw and exhibit sulky or silent behavior to manipulate the other person. Stonewalling is the same, where a person refuses to engage or communicate, creating emotional distance and making it difficult to resolve issues. The reality is that healthy attached couples and friends usually solve problems through dialogue, but for toxic individuals, drama and conflict give them a sense of power, especially if they initiated the argument. The goal is not to solve the problem, but to make you yield, submit, give in to their unreasonable demands, or even break you down emotionally. They often choose to start arguments in public to make you feel cornered and embarrassed, or they start arguments late at night when you're tired and sleepy, wearing you down with what is known as narcissistic rage or emotional dysregulation. They may refuse to let you sleep until you agree with them or until they see you defeated or in tears. Number five, gaslighting, which by the way originates from a 1938 stage play called Gaslight and later adapted into two films in 1940 and 1944. The story follows a husband who manipulates the gas lights in their home, but when his wife questions the changes, he denies any alterations. The husband continues to tamper with the lights, causing them to flicker and dim, all while insisting that nothing is wrong. And as a result, the wife begins to doubt her own sanity, constantly questioning if the lights are truly changing or if it's just her imagination. The husband's purpose is to make his wife question her reality and feel unstable, ultimately gaining control over her. Today, gaslighting is recognized as a form of manipulation where one person undermines another's perception of reality, leading them to doubt their own sanity or judgment. This behavior can be detrimental to one's self-esteem and emotional well-being. Let's explore some scenarios to illustrate what gaslighting gaslighting look like in various relationships? Scenario number 1, invalidating others' experiences. For example, when confronted about a hurtful comment, the gaslighter may dismiss it by saying, "I never said that. You must be imagining things," or "I was just joking." Scenario number 2, blaming and shifting responsibility. For example, the gaslighter deflects blame onto their partner, making them feel guilty or at fault. They may say things like, "You're too sensitive," or "It's your fault that we're always fighting." Scenario number 3, withholding information. The gaslighter intentionally withholds important details or distorts facts, claiming that they already mentioned them or that the other person simply forgot or didn't listen. You'll hear things like, "You never listened to me. You forgot again." Yeah, you gotta be aware of those phrases. Scenario number 4, undermining self-esteem. The gaslighter gradually erodes their partner's self-esteem through negative comments, belittling their abilities or constant criticism. They may say things like, "You're so lucky I'm with you," or "No one will ever want you." You might have encountered some of these scenarios and heard of some of the gaslighter statements before, and in my opinion, I think that gaslighters often engage in this behavior without fully realizing it. Sometimes I think they may genuinely believe they're helping you by warning you about perceived dangers or enemies that only exist in their mind. Where did I left off with the manipulation technique? Oh my god, it's only number 5. Oh god, well, forgive me for taking such a long time to make a point. And the worst part is, or the best part maybe, is that we're only halfway through. Oh, welcome to China University. This is Chimsy, your logoraic lecturer. In today's lecture, we'll not only... Okay, I'm kidding. Let's see. So, let's see. No, guilt tripping. Yeah, man. Guilt tripping is a manipulative tactic used by individuals to make others feel guilty or responsible for something, and usually involves intentionally playing on someone's emotion or using subtle tactics like, I don't know, make you feel remorseful or obligated to do something. The guilt tripper may use phrases like, "If you really loved me, you would," or "After everything I've done for you, this is how you pay me," to evoke a sense of guilt and control in the other person's actions or decisions. It can be a form of emotional manipulation, creating a power dynamic where the guilt tripper holds sway over the guilt-ridden individual. Number 7, also known as projective identification, and it's when someone, most of the times unconsciously, I think, puts their own thoughts and feelings or qualities onto another person, especially those thoughts, feelings, or qualities that the person possesses but perceive them as negative or undesirable in themselves. It's like imagining that someone else has the same emotions or traits that they don't want to acknowledge in themselves. For example, let's say that someone feels angry, but instead they project that anger onto someone else, believing that the other person is the angry one. So it would look like, let's say that someone is accusing you of always being angry. They may even provoke you just so that you act out the anger they're feeling inside. Another example is if someone feels insecure about their own intelligence, they might project those feelings onto a classmate, a friend, or a coworker, believing that others are the ones who are not smart, not me, I'm super smart. They may criticize or belittle the other person's ideas to protect their own self-esteem. Number 8, trauma bonding, which is when someone develops a strong emotional connection with an abusive person. I bet you have heard about Stockholm Syndrome, which is kind of similar to this, but in trauma bonding, the abuser mixes moments of kindness or positive experiences with the abuse. It's like a roller coaster of good and bad feelings. For example, imagine someone that is in a relationship with a partner who is physically abusive. After a violent episode, the abuser may apologize, show affection, and promise that it won't happen again. The victim, desperate for love and hoping for change, starts to believe the abuser, see him or her as a good person, and become attached to them. The victim becomes emotionally tied to the abuser, making it difficult to break free from the relationship. That's why sometimes you see couples that break up and get back together almost on a monthly basis. The cycle of verbal or physical abuse together with intermittent kindness really creates a powerful and complex bond that is so hard to understand, and is really hard to overcome. Number 9, triangulating, which is a sneaky maneuver used by some people to stir up drama and confusion in relationships. It's like bringing a third wheel into a conflict, taking focus away from the real issue and making things even messier. Let me break it down with an example. Imagine two friends, let's call them Alice and Bob, who are having a disagreement. Instead of facing the problem head on, Alice decides to involve another friend, Charlie, in the mix. She knows that Charlie will most likely take her side and support her. Alice might exaggerate or twist the details of the disagreement with Bob to make Bob look bad. Now, it's a team up against poor Bob, and the more people Alice brings into it, the worse it gets. This creates division and conflict between Bob and Charlie and all the others, and Alice used Charlie's reaction to back up her own views and further undermine Bob. In romantic relationships, triangulating can also happen when one partner drags in an ex or a close friend to make the other partner feel jealous or insecure, or just for the sake of creating drama and stirring up the waters. But at the end, it's usually all about gaining control and creating a power dynamic within the relationship, just to show you who's the boss. So be on the lookout for the signs of triangulating. Don't fall for it, and don't let others manipulate your relationships. But really, stay aware and keep things drama free. Number 10, devaluating, which occurs when a person consistently diminishes the value or worth of their partner, often through hypercriticism, belittlement, or withholding affection. This can erode the person's self-esteem, like I said before, or lead to an imbalanced and unhealthy dynamic. Sometimes toxic and manipulative people will try to convince you that you are worthless and that no one would ever love you or want to be your friend or partner. And if you buy into that, you will feel as if they must really love you, because despite all your supposed flaws, they're still with you. Don't fall for it, please. Oh, thank God it's over. But anyway, I'll list all the manipulation techniques in the description of this episode, but I will also leave the respective links to reliable websites and scientific journals I took information from for today's episode. It's crucial to skillfully navigate the potential challenges, particularly for international students, as the renowned author and life coach Tony Robbins once aptly stated, "The quality of your life is the quality of your relationships." Let that sink for a moment. The very essence of your life's richness and fulfillment hinges upon the connections you forge. And I believe that many of you can resonate with the idea that relationships you cultivate in China will significantly shape your overall experience in this captivating country. All right, as we conclude with this long-ass episode, I want to remind you to prioritize your mental and emotional health. After COVID, mental health became less of a taboo, so don't hesitate to seek professional help if you need it, and make sure to surround yourself with a supportive network of friends and loved ones. Coming up next on China University Podcast, we got a sizzling topic for our next episode: dormitories in China. Yeah, baby, we're ready to delve into the fascinating world of student dorm life, where we'll uncover the unique experiences and challenges that come with it. You already know I'll be spilling all the tea on this one, so stay tuned for eye-opening conversations, helpful tips, and of course some entertaining stories to keep you hooked. And with that, we've reached the end of another episode of China University Podcast. But before I let you go, don't forget to join the conversation and make your voice heard. Please like, leave a comment, and share this episode to help this podcast become more relevant and reach more people. Make sure to subscribe to China University Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and YouTube for all the latest episodes. Find us everywhere as China University Podcast, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at China Uni Podcast for updates and more. Thanks a bunch for tuning in and joining me, Jamesy, your student advisor. Remember that I'm here to help you navigate the twists and turns of university life in China. Until next time, take care and catch you later.